All right, I'm going to get this rolling because I feel lunch in our future. So, my name is Jennifer Edwards, and I've been asked here today by my beloved sister friend, Jennifer Foxworthy, and I'm going to speak to you today on the topic of human trafficking. Human trafficking, I thought, when she asked me. Okay, it's an important issue, but it can't be that big a deal in little old Calvert County now, can it? Once my research began, I came to the realization that I indeed was wrong. I have looked, but I did not see. Currently, I am the director of Crisis Intervention Center and Safe Harbor Domestic Violence Shelter in Calvert. At Safe Harbor, we care for women and their children who suffer from domestic violence. At Crisis Intervention Center, we provide therapeutic services for survivors of domestic violence, sexual assault, and trauma in any form that it may take. While working at CIC, I came to believe that we had generally seen it all, and that very little could walk through our doors that would surprise us. When I began to look deeper, I soon realized we may have looked for the signs of human trafficking, but we did not see the subtle indications of this modern-day slavery as it walked through our doors. But first, let's start at the beginning. What exactly is human trafficking? The short answer is, it's the business of stealing an individual's freedom for profit. In some cases, traffickers trick, defraud, or physically force victims into sex slavery. In other cases, victims are lied to, assaulted, threatened, and manipulated into working under inhumane, illegal, or unacceptable conditions. It is a $32 billion criminal industry that denies freedom to over 25 million people worldwide. It's growing steadily each year. Let's take a moment for statistics. In 2017, the Polaris Project, which is a nonprofit organization fighting this modern-day slavery, worked on over 8,759 cases of sex trafficking in the United States alone. Of these 8,700 plus cases, 10,615 victims were reported. 5,000 were potential traffickers, and 1,698 were individual businesses that supported human trafficking. Wow. Now, while these numbers may not seem extraordinary overall, it needs to be said that sex trafficking is so notoriously underreported, and these statistics represent just a tiny fraction of the actual problem. So let's take a second and talk about the Delmarva region, Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, where we all kind of come from. We'll throw Pennsylvania in there too. Maryland itself is uniquely situated to be a hotspot for human trafficking. According to the Polaris Project, our central location on the East Coast makes it both a pass-through area and a destination for human traffickers. We have Interstate I-95, Reagan, BWI, and Dulles, multiple colleges where our students can be preyed upon, casinos, Chesapeake Bay inner tributaries like Solomon's Island just down the road, the nation's capital, Washington, D.C. Multiple opportunities are available at sporting events, conferences, and let's not forget the political scene in general. For these reasons and many others, both victims and traffickers have told our law enforcement that this area is a gold mine for sex trafficking. They come in, they do their business, and leave just as quickly, making it difficult to find, identify, and rescue victims and slaves of these crimes against humanity. Let's also take a minute to clear up any misconceptions surrounding sex trafficking. We hear the word trafficking and assume this means movement, taking something or someone from one place to another, usually across state lines. Sex trafficking may indeed include this, but does not require movement of an individual. One can be trafficked out of their very own bedroom, or after school, or only on the weekends. Victims may be foreign-born, domestic, minors, or adults. They can be male, female, transgender. They may be one of the millions of slaves to our nation's drug epidemic, or given like a coupon to the landlord by their mommy to help supplement this month's rent. And we have seen that at Crisis Intervention Center. So who are the buyers? Certainly, while a buyer could be anyone, male or female, 99% of the time it is men who are purchasing sex. But why? There's research that has shown that men are exposed to many of the social pressures online and in person that can glamorize, normalize, and minimize the negative aspects of sex for money. Other reasons given by Johns themselves is that this can be a male bonding experience. We can joke about it. It's good. Or for convenience, or for the absolute thrill and power. Some have disclosed a distaste for normal relationships with women, and others have a desire to carry out a sex act that their partner does not or will not be a part of. Shockingly, 1 in 8 buyers believe that the rape of a prostitute is not possible, and that even the concept of rape does not apply to sex workers. Many believe the money exchange cancels out the harm of buying sex and entitles them to do whatever they want to the women, men, or children they have purchased. Old stereotypes persist and must be challenged at every turn. But first, we must see. I'd like to share a quote I found from Jada Pinkett Smith. People who are having sex with children are not Johns or tricks. They are child rapists and pedophiles, and so we should call them what they are. We must look and we must see because our future depends on it. Absolutely. Traffickers as well do not fall into one category or conform to the pimp stereotype. They can be male or female, young or old. They can be a family member, a boyfriend, a teacher, a mentor, or a best friend. Whoever they are the masters of deception, both caring and supportive, drawing one in as they prepare to abuse and coerce and threaten until that victim bends to their will without question. Behind that charming face is a devil whose only concern is power and money. And there is plenty of money to go around. One person, one human, one child can bring a trafficker over $200,000 a year in profit. Pimps, traffickers, slave dealers, whatever you would label them, can appear in many forms. We have our gorilla pimp. This is the one who controls their victims by brute force, employing beatings, gang rapes, restricting sleep, food, and movement. Their method of control? Fear. Then we have the Romeo pimp. They shower their prospective victim with love and affection and clothing and jewelry. They work to gain their trust by promising a better future. This pimp will isolate and brainwash that victim, and once they are completely dependent upon them, they will turn on them, and they will demand they sell their bodies or face beatings, isolation, and so much worse. Then there are the gangs. Gang members have realized that sex for money is a very profitable business. While drugs are still the #1 commodity they sell, many people have come to realize that while their drugs can be bought and sold and used just once, people can be bought and sold and used again and again and again. Finally, and what seems to be the most devastating of all, is the family pimp. The father, mother, brother, sister, uncle, family pimp. The very ones who are supposed to protect and guide, to care for and to love. They use the bonds of family to destroy one's soul. This perhaps is the deepest cut of all. I looked, but I truly did not see. We've looked at the pimps, We've looked at the buyers, but who is most vulnerable to sex trafficking? Who among us can fall prey to these false promises of love and affection? The real answer? Everyone. The most frightening answer? Our children. Our children between the ages of 12 and 14 are highly prized by buyers who seek them out. Our children who are homeless. Our children who are runaways. Our children who are throwaways. Our children in foster care. Our children whose parents are more concerned with scoring their next fix than caring for their child. Our children who are neglected, and our children who are forgotten, the young searching for some glimmer of kindness or love and will take it from anyone who appears to give a damn. These are the most vulnerable among us, and the traffickers are experts at sniffing them out and offering a glimpse of what so many are searching for. Sadly, it also must be stated that the average life expectancy for a sex trafficking victim is just 7 short years once they're in the life. Many of them will die from their beatings, or they'll be murdered, or perhaps they will die as a result of the neglect suffered because they are not allowed to eat, not allowed to sleep. Some will die by the drugs they take to numb the unending pain, or by the diseases inflicted upon them by the Johns who raped them, or even sadly, by their own hand. When I was 13, I had a friend named Susan. We were very close and shared everything with one another. She would stay at my house and I at hers. But I realized something was never quite right at her house. Her dad worked a lot and her mother was odd. Mom didn't keep a clean house, but she would often speak to us of how little girls should always stay clean, look their best, and do what the men say. Now, I didn't come from this world, but minded my manners at her house, and I didn't ask too many questions. One day, Susan seemed very down and anxious. I asked her what was wrong. She was quiet at first, but then cried as she showed me the bruises on her arms and her legs. She told me how her mother was addicted to cocaine, and when she couldn't pay that dealer, Susan was offered instead. Her mom frequently couldn't pay that dealer. During our conversation, Susan told me she had been having sex with multiple men, sometimes multiple times a week, since she was 7. She begged me and made me promise not to tell. I was just 13. She said that she would get beaten even worse and kicked out of the house if anyone else found out. I didn't know what to do. I hugged her. I held her. We cried together, feeling helpless to do anything at all. Years later, Facebook was the means by which I found out Susan had taken her life. She was just in her early 20s. You see, the drugs took over her life, and where her mother's abuse ended, her pimp's abuse began. I looked, but I didn't see. Why do I tell this story of my lost friend? Simply stated, because now is the time for us to stop speaking of statistics and to stand up and start changing them. That's right. It is the time to look, time to see, and time to bring the truth to light and to bring our children home. Frederick Douglass once stated, "This could be the generation that says enough. I expose slavery in this country because to expose it is to kill it. Slavery is one of those monsters of the darkness to whom the light of truth is death." Let us all now open our eyes. Let us see that sex trafficking is not just an issue for cities or countries far beyond our vision. These victims are here now, living among us, hoping that one day they too may be free. Let us now see the signs, Let us see that by gaining the knowledge about sex slavery and speaking to its destruction of our community, our neighborhoods, and our families, we can remove the blinders of stereotypes and reach out to bring all of God's children back into the light. Be vigilant, be strong, be unstoppable. Thank you.